Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at Zoroastrianism.
Absolutely, one of the oldest religions in the world.
Yeah. And to do that, we're going to be exploring the Zend Avesta.
Fascinating collection of sacred texts really gives us a window into their beliefs and practices.
Yeah. I was skimming through it earlier. I don't know about you, but one of the things that really stood out to me was just this constant kind of battle between good and evil.
Oh, absolutely. That's like the core of Zoroastrian cosmology. You have Ahura Mazda,
Okay.
the supreme god. The representation of all that is good, truth, and light.
Right.
And then you have Angra Mainyu, the embodiment of evil, darkness, and falsehood.
So like a cosmic tug of war.
Exactly. And it's playing out on a universal scale.
So then where do we as humans fit into all of this?
Well, that's what makes it so interesting. Every single choice we make, every thought, word, and deed contributes to one side or the other. We're not passive observers. We're active participants.
So you're telling me we have like a huge responsibility here.
We do. Every decision matters, no matter how small. It's about choosing truth over lies, righteousness over wickedness.
Okay, so how do we know which path to choose? Is there some kind of like rule book?
Well, the Zend Avesta talks a lot about Asha, which is this concept of truth and righteousness.
Yeah.
It's like a cosmic order, and we need to align ourselves with it.
So it's like more than just following rules. It's about cultivating like virtues, like honesty and compassion and...
Exactly. Good thought, good words, good deeds.
Gotcha. But let's be real. Good versus evil isn't always black and white. How does Zoroastrianism deal with those gray areas?
That's a great question, and it's something they recognize. It's not about being perfect, but about constantly striving, making those choices that reflect Asha, even when things get complicated.
So it's about that continuous self-reflection, constant improvement.
Absolutely. And speaking of which, there are specific practices and rituals outlined in the Zend Avesta that are designed to kind of help with this.
Like what?
Well, one example is the Brasham,
What is that?
a 9-night purification ceremony.
Oh,
It involves a lot of washing, prayers, specific rituals. It's all about cleansing, purifying the body and spirit.
9 nights. That's intense. So in Zoroastrianism, what kind of things were considered impure?
Well, death was a big one, contact with corpses.
Yeah.
And then things like bodily emissions, menstruation.
Okay.
These were seen as things that needed purification rituals to restore balance, to reconnect with Ahura Mazda.
So it's like this spiritual hygiene,
And
keeping
up
yourself
prep.
clean. Yeah. But I'm curious, did this focus on purity play a role in their everyday life?
Oh, absolutely, because it extended to your thoughts, your words, your actions. It's all about aligning your inner world with that cosmic struggle.
I see. So everything's connected. But, before we go too deep into the ethics, I got to ask about the epic stories in the Zend Avesta. I mean, we're talking about a 3-headed dragon.
Right. The myths and legends, they're so captivating.
Yeah, and they offer such amazing insights.
The story of Threttaona, the hero who slays Azidahaka, the 3-headed dragon.
Okay, 3 heads. This dragon sounds pretty intense. What did he represent?
Drought, tyranny, oppression, all those things that threaten life and prosperity.
Wow.
And Threttaona's victory. It's a symbol of good overcoming evil, It shows that courage and righteousness can overcome even the toughest challenges.
So it's like those battles we face internally, but playing out on a cosmic scale.
Exactly.
But there's got to be more to the Zend Avesta than just dragon slaying.
Oh, absolutely. So much more. It talks about social responsibility, ethical living. For example, there's this concept called Kavadvadatha, which emphasizes kinship and interconnectedness.
Kinship, so like family ties.
It's more than that. It encompasses family, but also extends to the whole community, even to humanity as a whole. It's about our responsibility to care for each other, especially those in need.
That's kind of like the idea of social justice we talk about today.
Yeah, exactly. And this is something that was put into practice in Zoroastrian communities. Charity, hospitality, supporting the less fortunate. These weren't just seen as good deeds, they were duties.
It's like that sense of connection wasn't just an idea that was woven into their lives. It was really beautiful. And speaking practical matters, there's that emphasis on agriculture and animal husbandry in the Zend Avesta. Seems a little unusual for a religion, don't you think?
It might seem that way, but it makes sense when you think about their worldview. They saw the world as this battleground, right?
Right.
And they believed that by cultivating the land, raising livestock, they were actively supporting Ahura Mazda's creation.
So it's like they were, in their own way, doing God's work, but in a very practical, down-to-earth way.
Exactly. They were fighting against the forces of darkness by taking care of the earth.
I love that. It adds a whole new dimension to things like planting a seed or taking care of an animal.
Right. Makes you think.
Yeah. But let's talk about the afterlife. Did Zoroastrians believe in, like, heaven and hell?
Yes. The Zend Avesta talks about a journey that the soul takes after death, and it involves judgment based on your deeds in life. It can lead to paradise, the house of song, or a place of punishment, the house of lies.
So a final reckoning for our actions. I've heard of similar concepts in other religions. What determined whether a soul went to paradise or punishment?
It all comes down to the balance of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds.
Right.
Living an ethical life, upholding truth, choosing good over evil. Those were the keys.
So it's like our actions have consequences not just in this life, but in the next as well. But hold on, there's something else about this afterlife journey, right? Something about a bridge.
Yes. The Chinwad Bridge.
Mm.
Each soul has to cross it.
So what happens there?
Well, when you die, you're met by this figure.
Okay.
Now, this figure is either beautiful or hideous, depending on the life you've lived.
So it's like your karma personified.
In a way, yes.
Mhm.
This figure acts as your guide during your journey.
Wow, that's powerful imagery. What do you think this tells us about how Zoroastrians viewed the connection between our actions and our inner selves?
It shows how much emphasis they placed on the consequences of our choices, how those choices shape not only our earthly lives, but our spiritual well-being. The beautiful maiden represents a life well lived, while that hideous figure reflects a life.
A life where you haven't quite lived up to
Exactly.
the ideal.
It really emphasizes that we shape our destiny through our actions.
That's incredible. You know, it's amazing how these ancient texts use such vivid imagery to express these really deep spiritual truths.
It is.
But before we get too lost in the mysteries of the afterlife, let's take a moment to let all this information sink in. We'll be back to uncover more insights from the Zend Avesta right after this.
It really is. Those images stay with you.
They do. But, you know, before we go too deep into the afterlife, I wanted to come back to something we were talking about earlier, the Kavat Vedatha, that idea of kinship. Did that lead to any, like, specific social structures or practices in Zoroastrian communities?
Oh, absolutely. Favadatha wasn't just this abstract ideal. It had very real-world implications.
Okay.
For example, charity and hospitality were highly valued, providing for those in need, welcoming strangers, sharing your resources.
Right.
These were all essential expressions of Kavatvadatta.
So it's like weaving that sense of connection into the fabric of daily life.
Exactly.
That's beautiful. And I'm guessing that connection extended beyond just humans, right? We were talking about earlier how agriculture and animal husbandry were considered acts of piety.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that a bit?
Yeah, for sure. The Zend Avesta emphasizes respecting and caring for all of creation. You know, going back to that idea that the world is this battleground between good and evil, right?
Right.
Ahura Mazda created the natural world. So by tending to the earth, taking care of its creatures, you're aligning yourself with Ahura Mazda and pushing back against the forces of darkness.
I'm starting to see a theme here. This idea that our actions have real power, that even, mundane tasks
Yeah.
can be infused with spiritual meaning.
Exactly. And this kind of brings us to another concept, the Fravashis.
What are those?
These are often described as guardian spirits. They're almost like
Okay.
celestial prototypes, like a higher self that exists even before we're born.
Okay, now that's interesting.
Yeah.
What role do they play in Zoroastrian belief? Do they, interact with us?
Yes. It is believed that they guide and protect us throughout our lives.
Okay.
They're there to offer inspiration, strength,
Right.
in our struggle against evil. Think of them as like powerful allies in this cosmic battle.
It's almost like having a personal guardian angel.
Yeah, kind of.
But you said they exist before we're born. Does that mean they're, connected to our ancestors or past lives?
Well, there is this sense that the Fravashis represent that collective spirit of those who came before us,
I see.
like a link to our heritage and the wisdom of previous generations.
So it's this web of connection to the divine, to our ancestors,
Yes,
to all of creation.
exactly.
It's a powerful reminder that we're not alone in this journey.
Mm.
But how do we connect with our Fravashis? Is there anything we can do to, strengthen that bond?
Well, the Zend Avesta talks about honoring them through prayer, ritual, and most importantly, by living a righteous life.
Okay.
By striving to make good choices, aligning ourselves with Asha, we strengthen that connection, we invite their guidance and protection.
Again, it comes back to that agency, right?
Yes.
That we have the power to shape our own destiny through our choices.
Mm,
But, I know we're running out of time.
yeah.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else from the Zend Avesta that you think is important for our listeners to know?
I think it's important to remember that the Zend Avesta is this vast, multifaceted text.
Right.
What we've covered today, it's really just a glimpse. There's
Yeah.
so much more to uncover. There are layers upon layers of meaning, and scholars are still debating interpretations and nuances even today.
That's what I love about these deep dives. We get to, like, scratch the surface of these incredible traditions
Yeah.
and hopefully spark a curiosity in our listeners to want to learn more. But before we send our listeners off on their own explorations, why don't we take a moment to recap some of the key takeaways from our dive into Zoroastrianism?
Sounds good.
Where do you want to start?
Well, we started by exploring that core concept of the cosmic battle.
Right, between good and evil.
Ahura Mazda versus Engraminyu.
Right.
And then we talked about Asha, that guiding principle of truth and righteousness that should inform every aspect of a Zoroastrian's life.
And we also talk about those rituals, the purification practices, which aim to cleanse the body and the spirit.
And of course, those captivating myths and legends,
Yeah.
they really bring those concepts to life in such a vivid way.
We talked about Kvatvadatha, that emphasis on kinship, interconnectedness with each other and all of creation.
And finally, we touched on the Fravashis, those guardian spirits that guide and protect us.
Wow. That's a lot. I don't know about you, but my mind is buzzing with new insights. It's amazing how these teachings, even though they're ancient, still resonate so powerfully today.
I agree. It's remarkable.
And I think that's the beauty of exploring these ancient traditions. They offer this timeless wisdom that can help us today as we navigate the complexities of modern life.
It's true. It really makes you think about, how you're living your life, the impact of each decision you make.
Yeah, because it's not just about personal consequences.
No.
It's about, contributing to this bigger picture, this cosmic battle between good and evil.
Exactly. And that's where Asha comes in, right? It's not just about following rules blindly. It's about cultivating that inner compass.
Right, to guide you toward truth and righteousness.
Exactly.
So before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on the Fravashis one more time. These guardian spirits, they're such a fascinating concept.
They are.
What do you think is the most important thing for our listeners to understand about them?
I think it's that connection, that interconnectedness. Because the Fravashis aren't just individual guardians. They represent a connection to something much bigger, to our ancestors, to the collective spirit of those who came before us.
It's like we're carrying a piece of that ancestral wisdom.
Yeah, exactly.
It's humbling, but it's also empowering to realize that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves. But how does this play out, practically in everyday life? Is there anything we can do to strengthen that connection to our Fravashis?
Live a good life.
Okay.
It's about aligning yourself with Asha, cultivating virtues, making ethical choices, striving to make the world a better place.
And in doing so, we honor not only our own Fravashi, but the legacy of those who came before us.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Zoroastrianism, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this exploration?
I hope they feel empowered. Empowered by the idea that they have a choice. They have agency in shaping their destiny. They can contribute to the triumph of good in the world.
That's powerful.
Zoroastrianism gives us a framework for living a meaningful, purposeful life. And these ideas, they resonate even today.
They really do. So to our listeners, we encourage you to delve deeper into Zoroastrianism. Pick up a copy of the Zend Avesta, explore online resources, even visit a Zoroastrian temple if you have one nearby. There's so much to discover.
And even if you don't embrace all the tenets of Zoroastrianism, it still offers valuable insights. Insights into humanity, the nature of good and evil, the power of choice. It can enrich anyone's understanding of themselves and the world around them.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey into the world of Zoroastrianism. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive. Be sure to check back daily for new deep dives into diverse and fascinating topics. And if you're looking for more information or guidance on your own journey of self-discovery, visit www.ultimatemasters.org/coaching or reach out to us on WhatsApp at +256 77 1324 11. And don't forget to share this episode with others who might be interested in exploring the wisdom of Zoroastrianism. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.